Hello, my lovely YouTubers. So in this video, I'm going to be potting up my Cattleya division. You probably have seen this division in a few other of my videos. I used this one as an example for my modified version of the Svagen bag. And as you can see, it has exploded with root growth. This guy is ready to get some more moisture. Unfortunately, during the colder months of the year, there's not as much humidity in the air. Usually around the summertime, I'm running about 90% humidity outdoors, and essentially that humidity waters the Cattleyas. So I'd actually leave this guy unpotted for another couple of months before actually potting him. He doesn't need to be potted because of that excess humidity in the air. Cattleyas are really drought-tolerant plants. So they don't need to be watered quite as frequently as some other orchids like Paphiopedilums. But they do appreciate to be watered, and they do appreciate moisture. So in the cooler months, I just want to make sure that this one gets the much needed moisture that it deserves, because those roots have come out seeking that moisture provided by the modified version of the Svagen bag. So because there's not as much humidity in the air, that's why I'm going to pot this guy up. But normally in the summertime, I wouldn't pot this guy up until his roots were a little bit longer and his pseudobulb was bigger. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how I pot up my divisions. Okay, so some things you'll need if you're wanting to pot up some divisions. Obviously, you'll need some sort of potting medium. I like a large chunk bark mixture for my Cattleyas and other drought-tolerant orchids. The bark has been soaked for about 4 hours now. Usually I soak it overnight for just to make sure that the bark has had a chance to absorb all the moisture that it can. And the reason that you want to do this is because normally when bark comes to you, it's very dry, kind of like a sponge. And of course, you have to let that sponge soak in water for a few minutes to make sure that all of the water is absorbed. And then you can squeeze out the excess water before you start cleaning or whatever. So it's pretty much the same with bark. You want to make sure that as much water is absorbed as possible before potting your orchids. That way you don't have to worry about the bark drying out too quickly, especially for orchids that are moving from sphagnum moss over to bark. Because it's such a change in moisture, you want to make sure your orchid is still getting adequate amounts of moisture switching over from sphagnum to bark. So I have this large chunk bark here. It also has these little chunks here, which are tree fern fiber. So you can see there, that's tree fern fiber. And there's also some charcoal, and the white bits are sponge rock. So I didn't make this mix myself. I purchased it pre-mixed at one of my specialty nurseries. I haven't seen this kind of mix for sale at box stores. This is just a specialty nursery near me that carries it. But you can pick up the supplies pretty much anywhere and make your own mix if you'd like to. I'm just, I'm lazy. I don't want to make my own mix, so I'm just going to use the mix that I purchased. And I filled this pot here, this terracotta clay pot, which is designed for orchids. You can see the holes there. I filled this pot with packing peanuts. You guys know how I like packing peanuts, because the pot is oversized. It's way too big for the tiny little root system on my orchid there. So that's why I filled it with packing peanuts. Make sure that there's lots of air, and the packing peanuts also add sort of a filler, so I'm not having to use as much bark medium. So that means that there's not going to be a whole lot of excess moisture just sitting in the pot. So I love packing peanuts for that reason. They're really great. I use them in all of my orchid pots. And actually the roots will attach to the packing peanuts, and that way you don't have to worry about overwatering your orchids, because there's all that air in there. And of course packing peanuts, they don't hold a lot of moisture, so you don't have to worry about your orchids being overwatered with packing peanuts. Something funny too, I noticed, I have probably over 100 succulents, and one of the ones that I have is called a mother of millions, mother of thousands. It's a Kalanchoe, and I'm probably saying that wrong, but it's just a plant that produces babies off of its leaves, so you can actually already start to see the little nubbins there at the end of the leaves. This one was growing right over here, and you can see more mother of millions babies. You can see why this plant gets its name. It reproduces like rabbits. It's crazy. So all of these here are mother of millions babies. I just thought it was so funny because I don't even remember my mother of million. I try to control the population because they do spread everywhere. You can see how many that I have. They're just, I mean, right there, and there's some more here and there. These will probably die off during the wintertime, so I'm not too worried about it, but yeah, they're everywhere. I just wanted to show you guys that because, yeah, they're everywhere. So you can see why it gets its name, and I didn't even think that any of the babies had made it onto the ground, but the babies, they're so small, so it's hard to micromanage all of them, and I guess some of the babies made it into the ground and decided to multiply. And another one of my, I guess you could call them, you know, quick reproducers, is my mint. So this here is actually, I wish you guys could smell it, it's chocolate mint. So it has a chocolate fragrance to it, and of course it smells like mint, and I like to use this stuff to cook with, and unfortunately there must have been some seeds that fell off of the mother plant, and of course now I'm being inundated with thousands of little chocolate mint plants. So yeah. Anyways, let's get back to the not repotting. Let's get back to the division potting. So I've selected my pot and I've selected my medium, and now I'm going to, of course, fill the bark into the pot until it reaches about there. See that little line that goes all the way around the pot? That's what I'm going to fill the pot with. Okay, so I have filled the pot to the line, and at this point I'm going to add in the most important ingredient to this potting, which is the division. Okay, so you can see that the division is in, and it actually has a nice little, looks kind of like a tree trunk, has a nice little tree trunk for me to be able to squish it down into the medium. I don't want to hurt those precious green roots because they are very susceptible to bruising and they're very tender growing points, so you want to make sure not to harm them. And if you can see, I sort of have the roots of the division flush with the top of the pot there. I don't know if you can really see that. So it's just a little bit down into the pot there, sort of flush with the top of the pot, and that's where I'm going to fill in the rest of the bark. Okay, so now you can see that I filled in the rest so that the top is, the bark is flush with the lip of the pot there, but the roots aren't covered, and the reason for that is the bark is just touching the roots there, but I don't want to cover the division, or the new roots, because I want to make sure that those roots grow down into the medium. Now, because these are the only roots for the plant, this is what in the orchid world is considered as a non-established division. So if you see that on eBay, where you'll see a potted orchid and it'll have a non-established division, that's what they mean. It just means that they've repotted it into a new pot, or like me, they've potted it from division status into potted status, and the roots haven't had a chance to grow into the pot. So it is a non-established division. That's what that means. Now, I don't want to cover the roots because I want them to get a chance to grow down into the medium. And this is really what I would recommend, because these roots are used to being out in the open air. They're not used to being covered by medium. So I'm going to give them the chance to decide where they want to go, and I don't want to worry about giving them too much moisture too quickly and rotting them. So that's why I haven't covered the roots with medium, but you can see that the medium is touching some of the roots. So that's my goal for potting this division. Now at this point I would add a rhizome clip, or I would add a bamboo skewer, and tie the division because you see it's really wobbly in there. And these root tips are very tender, so you don't want the orchid wiggling around. That will set back the root growth and overall set back the plant in recovery. So what I'm going to do now is secure this to a bamboo skewer. I don't have one on hand, so I can't show you guys in the video, but you just basically want to stick the bamboo skewer down into the medium and then tie the division to the bamboo skewer, and that just ensures that the orchid isn't going to move around a lot and those very delicate root tips are not going to be damaged. So that is how you pot up a division. If you guys have any questions, please leave a comment down below. Like this video for more like this in the future. Of course, subscribe to my channel because, you know, you'd be cool if you did. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.